Tonight, the FDA and invited guests will examine religion and democracy, namely, should religious-based political parties be allowed to participate in elections as electable parties. Joining the FDA tonight are Mr. Randy Tyson from the Center for Inquiry. Mr. Tyson is an officer at a local chapter of the CFI and a scientist with the National Research Council of Canada, and has a PhD in science from the University of Manitoba. Also joining the FDA podcast is Mr. Artur Pawlowski. Mr. Pawlowski is a representative for the Christian Heritage Party of Canada, and he is a lead pastor for the Street Church Ministries, in which he preaches on the streets of Calgary 4 days a week. The Street Church Ministry, which he's lead pastor at, among other things, feeds thousands of homeless in Calgary every month. Also with us is Mr. Jim Blake. He is chairman of the Concerned Christians of Canada and also a member of the Christian Heritage Party of Canada. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending this podcast. I'm going to jump right into it. In some ways, I'm questioning whether this should be even discussed, but in the secular world we have today, this is a pretty heated topic. I guess in the vein of secularism, I guess religious-based parties really don't have a place, but...
I'd like to give a kind of a strange example, and I thought about this today. Now, it's going to sound ridiculous at first, because I'm taking something from the Old Testament, this prohibition against wearing clothing of mixed fibers. It's so strange, not even an Orthodox Jewish rabbi can tell you why that is. Now, suppose a religious party comes into power, decides that it would like to abolish even the selling of clothing of mixed fibers. Now, it's purely on a sectarian basis. Nobody in this case, nobody even within the sect understands the concept. It's just decreed that it is as a prohibition. But if nobody else outside of that understands it, it's kind of hard for people to be involved in that process. They're literally excluded from it because they have no understanding of it. Now, it's an extreme example, but we have a modern-day example where there is no secular reason against same-sex marriage. And I'm sure everybody was thinking, but it took this long to get on the subject, right? But because I can only think of sectarian reasons for disallowing same-sex marriage. Anybody who comes from a purely secular point of view thinks of it as just as absurd. So if it doesn't have some reason that everybody can understand, that there's some basic principles that everybody accepts, and that policy isn't built upon that, you don't have everybody behind it. You have people that are wondering why do we have this policy?
I think that kind of calls to the fundamental question underlying all of it is the idea that we have of the separation of church and state.
But we don't. Not in Canada.
Not even in the United States.
Yeah.
But you're talking in practice.
Yeah.
But you're talking in practice.
I'm talking even in principle. There is nothing within the Constitution which says that religion needs to stay out of government. It's purely at the pleasure of the person holding the office.
Let's hold the horses for now. Tell me first, do you understand what that even means?
Which?
Separation of state and...
Church and state.
Church and state.
Oh, I'm also an American, so it's
what that means, what that intended to do actually when it was written.
It's intended that government is blind to religion, so it does not give anybody something above a level playing field on the basis of their beliefs.
And no preference.
No preference. It's completely blind to it. So it's the same as if it's blind to a person's sex or sexual orientation or.
So, in other words, the governments and their authorities have no right to come into the church or into someone's beliefs and interfere with their rights.
Or promote it.
I think it's more the other way around.
More
the church
promotion.
Doesn't have a right to go into government.
No.
Well, it's both ways.
That's not how it was
Cuts
raised
both
in
ways.
the U.S. at least.
No, it was intended. It was always intended
to protect citizens.
To protect the church.
Yeah.
That the government would not interfere with the
Actually,
church's
no,
duties.
that's false. What
That's
happened
not
was, in Britain, people were forced to go to church. And what, at least in the United States, that the wall of separation between church and state, as Jefferson put it, was set up in order that government does not force anybody to hold any particular beliefs. So it does.
It went both ways, though.
Yeah,
it also protected the
yes.
church from
Exactly.
from a burden from government.
That's
that,
right.
That the government would impose legislation that would restrict the church
Yeah.
in its existence and in its influence in society.
Yeah,
So it was both ways.
totally agree.
Yeah, myself, I'm less concerned with how it has been applied in the past, but I think the discussion today is more about how it can and should be applied. And just as Canada has reasonable limits on freedom of expression,
Yes.
there are certain things that we find, hate speech and things like this is not acceptable.
But strangely enough, holding on to thousands of depictions of rude acts of child pornography somehow is allowable under the charter. So there's a lot of debate on whether or not
I'm not
the
familiar
charter.
with that. I'd have
That's
to
the
cite
is
the
it
example.
the name of Stroll, was it?
As far as
He was in Vancouver. Was it Chuck
Stroll?
No, it can't be.
No, it wasn't.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Strong. I can't remember the name of the fellow, but he was actually, there was a Supreme Court case where he was vindicated for carrying and having various depictions of child pornography in various states, right? So that was something that the Supreme Court vindicated.
Well,
so just
what was their
because
actual reason for actually?
it was freedom of expression, that's what they said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody listening can maybe do some fact checking around it, but we do have other reasonable limits besides hate speech. For example, in terms of elections, we have limits on campaign and candidate financing. Now, the reason we have something like that is because to simply say, allowing everything is democratic is a simplistic and inaccurate understanding of
And I would
democracy.
agree with
And
you.
that's why we have constitutions.
Yeah.
Well, we place certain mechanisms in the game. We set rules to a game to make a game fair, as
Yes.
you would with any board game or any other
Yeah,
game.
and I don't think that any Christian political party would be advocating anarchy. There's many groups, including Occupy Calgary, that seem to be promoting anarchy, but the Christian Heritage Party is by no means one of those groups. It believes in law and order, and it certainly wouldn't believe in not allowing reasonable limits.
The issue I have is, why are religious-based parties being singled out on this issue?
Well,
Because secular parties are not immune to hate,
Yeah.
or visions of anarchy, et cetera, et
I'll tell
cetera.
you why, Steve. Because if I have a political-based party that's neoconservative, nowhere in the Wealth of Nations or any neoconservative literature does it discuss horrific acts like the Bible does. You know what I mean? In the Bible, you've got justification for cutting people's hands off, stoning people. You know what I mean? The list goes on. Incest, it's all in there.
Not allowed.
I got it from incest, Deuteronomy 25:11.
Well, rape is barely a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I got it right here, man. It's all in there, and I understand there's a lot of good stuff in the Bible as well, but there's a lot of bad stuff in there too. So you've got a political-based party that says that they base their policy on the Bible. That's what they're basing it on, right? If I'm a neoconservative, I say I base my policy on that ideology. Nowhere in any of those books, that literature I look to, does it say that. Same with communism. Nowhere in the Communist Manifesto does it say or give justification for any of those horrific acts.
Okay, so that's where I would stop you on because I think what it comes down to is restricting areas of belief from the public square, from the political debate. And I think what it comes down to is that there is a wide spectrum and collage of belief, not the least of which is allowed in the political spectrum. You have the Rhino Party, and that is
not anymore.
you know,
Unfortunately, not anymore.
Now hold on.
I thought being allowed, the charter allowed child porn, as we were talking about, correct? So if the Constitution is willing to bend on that, let's just say it's not willing to bend on stoning or incest or cutting people's hands off.
Well, there's still matters which are still up for public opinion. Some of them we would probably widely vary in our opinion on them, whether or not the unborn should be protected in the womb. Some people would use the word abortion. Other people would use the word murder of the unborn. It depends on your viewpoint. There's an idealistic viewpoint that's brought into all discussions, and everybody has.
Point though.
The point is actually the point of the whole discussion is not changing the topic at all. You raised it. Is the fact that this is a discussion on who should be allowed into the debate and who should not be allowed into. Communist Party, for example, communism by its very nature is atheistic. In fact, if you look at nations,
here we go.
if you look at nations that are
Except in South America, which is entirely
not, because
religious.
this is a topic on whether or not a religious party should be allowed within the political spectrum.
Religious-based interest groups. Religious participation is okay, but religious-based political parties.
That's what I just finished saying. So,
That's what he's meaning.
Yeah. So if you look at the Communist Party, because he said that none of the parties would have a platform apart from, say, the Christian Heritage Party that would be religious in nature and its implication, and therefore exclusionary. I would disagree with that. First of all, worldview is not purely religious. For example, the Green Party has a worldview. It has a worldview that's it's quite stringent on its curtailing of people's rights when it comes to, and I'm actually very environmentally friendly minded, so I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, some of their viewpoints. But they have a very strong view that, for example, CO2 gas emissions are the cause for all the problems that we have with the way that global warming is going and all that kind of thing. And so they would have entire belief system around that protection of the environment, influence policy, influence the direction of government, influence individual rights, and would exclude those people that do not believe in that viewpoint when it comes to the reasons for pollution and the reasons for the warming of the earth and things like that. So I don't think that it's wrong that a party has a viewpoint. I think it's wrong if the party hides their viewpoint. Because ultimately in a democracy, if you state publicly what your viewpoint is, people have the right to vote for you or not vote for you. So that's what democracy is all about. Freely and openly state what you're about, and people like it or they don't like it, they can vote for you or not vote for
So you see, I grew up under communist regime, right? I have seen when people, let's say like you, that had one point of view disagreed with everybody else's point of view, and they said, we should not allow children to know that there is God, for example, because communists did not believe that there is God. At least under, well, it does. Because my father was working for the government and he was told repeatedly that there is no God. He was forbidden by the government to go with me and my mom to the church. Because if he was caught in the church, he would lose his job. So that was their point of view, and what they tried to do is to force their opinion, their point of view on life, on everything, upon the rest of the society. What that created, it created dictatorship and suffering for 50 years of Polish nation and so many other nations as well, right? I can just speak for what I have seen. When people finally had enough of that dictatorship in 81, they took to the streets and they fought and they died, and finally Poland broke through that.
You're talking about Poland, right?
Poland, through that regime, right? But the thing is, if in democratic country, if I have so much power that I can say, because you believe in Allah or Buddha or homosexuality, I will disallow you to form political party because based on your views. I don't like those views. I don't agree with those views. Therefore, I will muzzle you. I will put all obstacles against you so you will not be able to have that democratic right to form a political party. And you know what? If you have 10 million people that like your views and they want to have a party, who are you or anybody else to say, no, you cannot have it because of the policy? That's what creates dictatorship. Minority dictates to the majority what is allowed in, in the country or not. For example, we have a very interesting situation in Canada regarding abortion. If you go, or homosexuality, that's even better. I love that topic because everybody are afraid of speaking about that topic. So that's why I always try to bring it up. If you ask a regular Canadian, just the common man, what he thinks about homosexual marriage, majority of people that you would go and ask would say, I disagree with that. I don't understand why even that was brought to to the power and was forced basically on us. And I'll tell you why I know that, because when that was the debate and that was in the government, I did that. I went to people and I asked, not the believers, anyone on the streets, what do you think about it? I disagree. I disagree. There were some people that agreed, but majority of the people disagreed, and yet was forced upon the rest.
Who's forcing people to be homosexuals?
No,
That's
no.
Wait.
No. This is great.
Let me finish.
Okay, I thought you were finished. I apologize.
There are implications, They are repercussions when the government forces the rest of the society to agree with their policy, like you're saying, the policy, let's say, of Christian Heritage Party. So we're looking at a policy that penalizes right now pastors for if a pastor says, I will not marry you because of my beliefs. Because of
right or not?
Because no. Actually, pastors lost their licenses because they refused to marry homosexual couples.
You're talking about marriage commissioners.
Well, it's both.
That's different.
As a pastor,
they're agents of the government. They are an arm of the government. They are not. Whether or not they agree with it is of no consequence. It's not about them. It's about the couple that are being.
Okay, you have a wrong guy here, because I'll tell you what happened to me. And I'm a pastor, registered. I have a charity organization, actually two. I feed 200,000 people a year. And the arm of the government came to me and said, because I have negative views on some subject that can be viewed as political, such as abortion, homosexuality, or divorce, I'm not eligible to have charity status anymore. No, it's not. Because if your point of view gets its way, and I have no right to form my counterparty to your evil doing, or whatever you want to call it, then you are basically shutting me out of the society and the people like me by saying, I have a right to have my opinions, whatever crazy
You're
opinions.
illustrating my example further because you live in a country where religious-based parties exist.
I know.
And this is still happening.
But if you would have your way, for example, that party would not be allowed to exist. And my point is, just a second, my point is that we have to do everything in our power to allow different opinions. If there is crazy enough people for occupied Calgary, and there is 1 million people voting for them, I still think, as crazy as it sounds, I still believe that people should have their voice. If they want to vote for a government that has those bad policies that even I disagree, I still believe that in a democratic country we should allow them to voice their opinion.
Yeah, you're totally right, Artur, at least from my perspective, because what we're talking about is the will of the people. That's talking about the will of the people as the kernel of democracy. What we want is to, when we run these elections, is to try and capture that will. And it's about what you said, the expression. And the thing we have to keep in mind, we have constitutional law, we have a Charter of Rights, we have Bill of Human Rights, and these protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So, in that sense, our system is set up to allow a plurality of parties.
I don't think,
and so it should.
Our friend has had an opportunity.
Just to finish it, there is a Green Party, and Jim was touched that topic. I completely disagree on that. Not that I'm not environmentally friendly, it's because God says in the Bible that they would change to worship of the Creator, and they started to worship creation. And that's what I see in that party. A tree is more important than babies. That 105,000 babies are murdered, slaughtered every single year in this country. So they value more stuff, like creation, more than the Creator and human lives. But I have never attacked a person that belongs to Green Party. Why would I? He is completely entitled to his opinion. And that's my point of view. You have a right to believe in what you believe. And that makes
a lot of sense for what happens in North America. But like what I was thinking about today, at what point does religion in a political-based party become overpowering to the people? Like we were talking before about the Middle East, when there's specific religious religious-based parties in the Middle East that their entire constitution, or a majority of their constitution, revolves around the teachings of Allah or whatever country we're in, whatever their belief system is. So at what point does this become too much? Like, I mean, if you say use Muhammad's name in vain, you probably have a pretty good chance that you're going to be put on the death penalty.
You will in Iran. You will in Iran.
So at what point does...
But I think you raise a good point. And I think the thing is that that's why we have laws in place. The problem is when people allow those kinds of things to creep in the back door, rather than being brought in through democratic process.
But are these religious laws?
The laws were banned in the child, just before, like you said, the charter case in the child porn, you brought that up before.
No, they weren't banned. It was
allowed underneath the charter, you said.
It was
so
allowed
they're
because...
going to allow that. Who says they won't allow another
No, but hold on.
similar injustice?
You see, what I'm saying is with that, you can't simply base it on, okay, well, public opinion or whatever, because public opinion shifts, you know? And the thing is, our nation was founded on certain principles. You know, those principles guide our legal system. Those principles guide our democratic process.
Yes.
Right? It's when we allow, it's not so much allowing groups within the forum that openly state what their viewpoint is that's the danger. The danger is when you have an elected party, whoever they may be, that allows people to subvert the democratic process to get their viewpoint
but we're talking about
adopted.
parties that are going through the legitimate democratic process.
But that's the problem.
So let's look
the
at
problem
Islam.
is not democracy. The problem is the corruption of democracy.
But let's look at Islam in the Middle East, right?
What is democracy?
Let's look in
I could
Islam.
argue about that all night.
I just want to touch on a couple of things. Arturo?
Arthur, yeah.
Arthur? Arthur. Yeah, I mean... Arthur. Thank you. Sorry.
Good enough.
You actually touched on a couple of really important things that really highlights the nature of the problem. You know, for example, because the underlying question is, I can't speak for anyone else at this table. Anybody here can believe whatever they want, and they can.
Thank you. I appreciate your opinion.
Absolutely. But how
You wouldn't say that in Iran.
Perhaps, or perhaps not communist Poland either. However, this isn't communist Poland or Iran, so.
Not yet, thankfully.
But people having a right to believe whatever they want, expressing their beliefs whatever they want, and is one thing, and how you build a foundation for a society is a completely different thing. If we're not going to, and basically, if we're going to have a rational secular society that can incorporate the pluralism.
Well, let's say a rational society rather than
a rational society, right?
Society,
okay, right? Even better. Then we have to base it on something, and what we got to base it on are tested, repeatable, verified by multiple persons ways of evidencing things, evidence-based society. Exactly. And we don't get that from religion. What we get from religion is faith. Okay, we get teachings that. Oh, by the way, you mentioned communism. As somehow being atheistic. Oh. Clearly, that's not the case in Nicaragua, Guatemala, or pretty much anywhere in South America. If anyone's familiar with liberation theology,
I'm an atheist.
Christianity is the basis of communism in many South American countries. And this opens up the other thing. The problem with religion is it can be interpreted in any number of ways. It can be the basis for communism, it can be the basis for fascism, and it can be the basis for anything in between. And this isn't a rational way to base a society.
Of course. That can be said. You're making an argument that could easily be argued on the other side. So if you're going to talk rational...
No, it can't. If we're not basing things on evidence... No, it's not. And I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. We can't base...
My friend, you are debating something that is a separate topic. You may not like what's in the Bible.
Your party says that it bases... Your party says base the Bible above all policy. Correct?
His party.
Okay.
Your party. So based above all
you have to understand...
Who's the representative from the Christian Heritage Party?
Both of us are
members.
Both are members, okay. Yeah. So the Christian Heritage Party bases their policy on the Bible. We're talking about the basis for political parties.
Listen, not correct.
That's what we're talking about.
That's the question. Of this
let him respond.
That are based upon the Bible, upon the truth.
Some of it.
That's right.
And that's
some of the most...
The point is that all parties have...
Every party has a faith system. It may be secular based.
Right?
It may be religious based.
Yeah, but it's
it
not.
May be
They're not equally
It
valid.
doesn't say
They're not.
the Communist Manifesto justifications for incest or cutting people's hands off or stoning. It does in the Bible.
Because there's no, you know why it doesn't say that in the Communist Manifesto? Because there's no good evidence for doing such things. And if we're not going to have evidence-based society, why do we have a police or a judiciary whatsoever? Why don't all the judges and lawyers just go home and stop? Why don't all the engineers stop doing their jobs? Because if we're not basing things on some rational evidence,
but I like your point.
Why are we having society at all?
You brought a very valid point, right? History. I love history.
Yes.
When we look at the history, we can learn so much. Agreed?
I'm enjoying this.
We look at the history and we see faults, mistakes, and successes of other people.
It's a debate. Don't take
right?
it personally.
Yes. So let's look at history. Proven history, repeated number of times, decades, hundreds of years. And let's look at societies. Let's look first at Islam. You brought a very good topic. Islam. It's a religious-based dictatorship. That's what it is. It's just dictatorship. Wherever it comes.
Where? In Iran?
Everywhere in Middle East, in many countries.
Turkey's
it is a dictatorship.
I would agree.
100%.
I agree with you on that, by the way,
It
basically. But I say would it apply just as much to Judaism and Christianity?
But no, just a second. So history. Again, we're going back. History.
What's
Islam? We start with Islam. We will end up with Judaism and Christianity. In Islam, what do you have? Show me one country. I had this debate with a university student because he was attacking me about abortion when we were having a debate about abortion. And he would just go in crazy. And I said, okay, fine, let's stop. Hold your horses and let's talk about it. Why did you came here to this country? Because here is democracy. Why you're not going back to your country? Because over there is horror, death, dictatorship, forced stuff, and we can go on and on and on, right? How they treat women. Women are property. They don't have rights. So show me one country, I asked him. One country in the whole world that had Islam as a majority that brought peace, democracy, and enjoyment of life for everyone. He looked at me and he says, you're right. Would you go back to your country? No, I wouldn't. Right? So that's one thing. History. Then let's go Judaism. It's one country that we can think of, right? Israel. You're looking at the perfect democracy. I'll tell you why. Because in Israel, in Jerusalem, every person is allowed to preach wherever he wants to preach. It's a total democracy. Islam can stand up over there and preach. A Christian can stop and preach about Jesus, and they don't believe in Jesus as a Messiah. Because they believe that the only way to keep Israel safe is to have this perfect democracy to its core. And look at Christianity. Look at this nation, Canada, was founded by missionaries that escaped persecution in Europe. I don't know if you're familiar about that. In 1500s, missionaries would come here. Then the country was growing up, and when you look at the forefathers, that they presented this new dominion, this new country in Charlottetown, they even wanted the whole future generations to know that this country was founded upon Christianity, and it's in the look at the motto.
But you know what? They can think whatever they want back then. We're now, and we're here, and we can make our own decisions about things.
But what kind of a country did our forefathers build? Look at the fruit of. You see, we're talking about history, right? The fruit, proven things, and a country that takes the truth, God's truth, flourishes.
The fruits in this country.
You made generalizations about Islam. You made generalizations about our history.
But repeatable evidence.
I'm going to have to comment here, Arthur.
So do I.
You got to be careful with Islam, like any type of. I have done research on new parties emerging in Islam, and some of them are extremely democratic. So they are absorbing the democratic spirit and toning down the Islam, and then just be careful there.
But they don't follow Islam, because if you know what Islam is,
well, they're mixing it up. Islam is part of it, but it's not.
Well, you're not following Christianity.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not running around chopping off people's hands off.
But we're talking
and
about.
I bet you that church consists of mixed fabrics.
And so is Islam.
Exactly.
You misunderstand Christianity, my friend.
Hold on a second, Dan.
Okay.
Actually,
the topic that
Christianity has changed.
like getting back to your
the same
point,
as it was ever since Jesus founded it.
we have to be careful.
So you have no problems with slavery. No problems at all with slavery. Christianity had no problems with slavery.
It was William Wilberforce.
So slaves are free, but they're still slaves.
You see,
William Wilberforce was very, very influential, and he was the one who actually worked very hard to actually emancipate the blacks.
Yeah, except that you couldn't. Where in Scripture
Martin Luther King Jr.
is emancipation? What? Where in Scripture is abolition? Where in Scripture? Scripture was the basis of the Southern attempt at maintaining the slave industry.
Because of misunderstanding of the Scripture.
Oh, but whose understanding is correct?
You know what? Here's the thing.
That's exactly the problem with religion. It can mean anything because it's not based on anything.
And it's contradictory.
There's nothing rational or evidentially based about
is
it.
that unfortunately we don't have time.
Yeah, we're getting off topic.
We don't have time to debate Christianity, although it would be a good topic.
Any religion.
But the reality is, and it's okay. You don't. No, I'm not feeling picked on at all. But if you want to debate that, that's good. That's a conversation for another day. Really, what we're talking about here is whether or not Christian parties or Islamic parties or any other religion should be allowed to have party status and to receive votes during elections and have a voice within the debate.
I don't think you're going to find any dissents here.
Yeah, and so I think that when it comes down to that, and you and I may differ very widely in our opinions, and it'd be great to have a more in-depth conversation on Christianity, but when it comes to this topic, it seems to me like we're in consensus until we start talking about the details of the religion.
But that's exactly what I said.
But we can do that.
That Steve asked at the very beginning.
So look at the
topics of abortion, and homosexuality, and Christianity versus Islam.
That actually wasn't the conversation that was started. The conversation was
that's what I'm
started.
trying to say. If you want to talk about that, we're talking about whether religious-based parties should be allowed if their founding principles.
But then you were bringing up the Old Testament and mixed fibers and all those other things.
I
just wanted to give an example.
The basis for
you were bringing up Leviticus.
The basis for policy should not be religious texts.
And that's up to citizens to decide when they cast their vote.
Unless they violate the Constitution. Podcast has been, I actually agree with you a lot. If anyone can have any policy or any platform stating however they want to spend the money that the government makes or however they want to use their
absolutely.
That's what party platforms are about. That's what party policies are about.
I believe in a true democracy. I think there is a point where there should be a specific number of parties that can be allowed to run in that government. But once we hit that point, I think that there should be a wide range of different viewpoints that the citizens can vote upon, and that's what I believe where the true democracy.
I think people are conflating my opinion with excluding religious-based interest in government. I'm not for exclusion. I have no problem with Christianity, with Islam, with any religion. I just don't think that.
Well, clearly you do. So let's.
No, I don't. Though that's what I'm having with. The reason you're sensing anger from me is because you guys are getting off topic. We're not talking about religious-based parties.
And you keep drawing us back into it.
No, you keep.
Every party should have a policy. You look at the policy, right? It has to be open policy. You go at the Christian Heritage Party, you pick up your book, and you read what those people stand for. Okay, we stand against abortion.
And every political party does that. We're not talking about corruption. We're talking about legitimate political parties and their founders' basis or founding principles.
So let's touch a few of those principles.
So maybe I'm misunderstanding you. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. So what's your viewpoint? Do you believe that the Christian party that we're talking about, Christian Heritage Party, has the right? You're interrupting me. Let me just state the question clearly so that you know what I'm asking, and then you can answer it, right? Do you believe that the Christian Heritage Party has the right to be a party in Canada? Yes or no?
No, I do not.
Okay.
And I'll tell you
why. So now we have a foundation.
Okay.
Let me tell you
why. Now
we're
back in the topic.
Okay, go. Just hear them out.
I'll tell you why. Because they base their parties on the Bible above all. At the top of their document, it says that they base all the following policies. The Bible is based above all.
So your problem is the Bible.
Yeah, I think it's an inhumane document.
Okay, so you disagree with the Bible, but that really doesn't state the fact.
I never said I disagree with the Bible in its entirety. I said it's an inhumane document. There's inhumane aspects in the Bible. Agreed?
You believe.
No, but
And that's
cutting
your
off someone's
state of
hand, is
belief.
that inhumane?
That's your state of belief.
I'm asking you
I'm not
something.
going to debate you
You
about
asked me a
Christianity
question,
right
I
now.
said I gave you a
I'm
legitimate
talking
answer.
about whether or not
I'm
a
asking you right now,
party
is that inhumane or
should
not?
have the right to exist
I answered your question.
on the
you can answer
basis
mine.
of whatever belief system they may have.
Are you going to answer my question?
I'm not going to debate Christianity with you right now.
No. You asked me a question.
You're asking me whether or
Is
not
cutting
I
off someone's
believe.
hand inhumane?
Let me
You
answer.
asked me whether I believe in a
can I
specific
cut in?
tenet.
I think the problem with your argument
Imposed.
is you're taking the Bible out of context.
I'm not taking it out of context. It says that
It
word
was
for
written.
word.
You don't know what aspects the
Well, let's
Christian
not-
Heritage
let's
Party
not-
is drawing on.
Let's
But,
not
but the thing
debate.
is at the top, it doesn't say we're drawing on aspects A, B, and C. It says the Bible above all.
So
the
we've-
entire
so you
document
made it clear
above
that your
all.
problem is the
Are you
Bible.
familiar with Adolf Hitler?
What's that?
And
Which means
his
they don't
Mein
get
Kampf. Let's. I understand
Yeah,
your
and that
point
shows
of view.
no
Let's talk about his point of view. Let's give him that
Yeah.
floor.
Yeah.
Mein Kampf, right? Adolf Hitler. Whoever was voting for him in 26 to 39, I don't think, the other half of 30s, they had a choice. But at that time, let's say, whoever was voting for that party should read his book. And whatever that book is stating, they should understand what this guy is coming from, what he's going to bring, what are his plans. So if you disagree with the Bible, and whatever the aspect or problems the Bible may have over there, don't vote for that party. And say,
Or ask questions.
I don't like the way, I don't like this book. It's full
Ask
of
questions.
problems. Therefore, I will discourage everyone in my neighborhood to vote for you guys.
Then why don't we allow parties that are based on hatred of certain races, for example? Why don't we just allow those?
Or
too?
Because we have a criminal code that prohibits us from. So there are policies in place. We have court system that, disqualifies people that are coming clearly with hatred. So if you can actually prove
But our criticism of the hatred is the irrationality of it, that it's not based on anything. People are born whatever skin color they're born. They're born whatever sexual orientation they're born.
well, we
That's really
disagree
not the
here.
point. The point is,
I
You can
disagree.
disagree, but
Science
again, you're
disproves it.
rejecting science. And again, and by the way,
No, we're not rejecting science
And it's
at
such a
all.
beautiful example earlier of how you rejected science earlier too, when you
Sorry,
said
I
I
believe-
anecdotally spoke to numerous people on the street, and
That's not
the
all
majority
over
are
the place,
against
my friend.
homosexuals. If we look at
No,
the actual
that's not what
polling,
he said.
if we actually look at the
They did.
polling data,
said
he said
against
that. He did say
homosexual
that.
marriage, not against
Yeah,
homosexuals.
and if we look at the polling data in Canada, the majority of Canadians
difference?
are in favor and accepting of homosexual marriage, and I would ask our listeners to
you know,
I
the
don't see
point-
the difference
Well,
between
why should
being
you ban
against
the party on
homosexuality
those grounds?
and same-sex marriage.
Why should they be banned?
This isn't a single topic
I'm
discussion.
not suggesting. I want to just clear something
Stop
out.
question.
Wait. I'm not suggesting they should be banned. All I'm suggesting is that you will get a fairer and more democratic society if they are banned.
Oh, that's not true.
But the reason
Because you're saying
strong statement.
by
Yeah, I don't
exempting
know if
certain
that-
viewpoints, you therefore make society more fair because those viewpoints have been excluded.
Okay.
Fair to who?
But that doesn't mean that those views
Yeah,
do not
okay.
religion
exist.
has no place in government.
But there is a limit,
According to
isn't
you.
there?
That's your opinion. And you're
Certain
Thomas
parties
Jefferson, and you're
will not
entitled
be
to.
allowed.
Neo-Nazi party. Let's say
A
tomorrow
neo-Nazi,
comes. Neo-Nazis are
A
coming
party
tomorrow.
that has
We wanna
hatred
register.
to certain groups and wants to wipe them
But
out.
that's
I'm sorry, I allow-
irrelevant, man.
You allow them.
Yeah.
So you would allow every
So
party?
that's
I'm not going
fair.
to vote for him.
But that's okay. He allows the neo-Nazis.
Yeah.
But then there is something that we call a judicial system, courts. And the courts clearly will say this party stands for hatred. Therefore, they're not
Their
allowed.
policies stand for hatred, yes, but so
That's
they
right.
cannot enact
So-
any policy which is like
So if you can actually prove that Christian Heritage Party stands for hatred, you cannot, in a democratic society, forbid people to vote for whoever they want to vote for, or to form any party or any club or any society or any whatever you want to call it, because that would be an act of dictatorship. That's exactly the definition of dictatorship. I don't believe in what you believe, therefore I forbid you to express your views through all the means I can. That's dictatorship. Media in Canada are actually doing that. They are very selective. To this day, I'm banned from Calgary Sun. I cannot even make a comments because I'm on their blacklist that automatically my comments are withdrawn. That's dictatorship. They say, and it's funny because Sun Media Network, it claims that they want to be a very conservative, open-minded for a democracy, media, but they are proving that they are very
Selective.
Very selective. I don't like your views. Therefore, I will ban you from expressing your views. That's
But they're
dictatorship.
a private institution. They
Yeah,
can do that.
and they can do that if they want to.
And-
They do have, I believe, a certain important role as the media. They have a certain role to play to try and show a spectrum of views and not simply just a specific segment of views.
Yeah.
But what media outlet does
But
that
now-
these days?
That's the thing. You're
But
in a
it's
court of
saying
law
we're
determines
not
that,
But
right?
now
Religion
let's go to the government,
from
right? Because
participating.
this
That's
is a
what we're
private
saying.
institution. Yes.
It's a good point. It's a limitation of.
But
That's not what we're saying. We're not
but
saying
that-
they're excluded from any participation. We're not saying we're
You are
excluding
excluding
people.
them
You
from
are.
No,
participation.
we're
But he is
not.
on
We're
that.
excluding them from forming on the basis of religion.
I want to be a prime
can I
minister
can I
of
But
interject
what's your argument? You're saying it's based on hate?
That I'm saying that what is a Christian-based party, if their founding principles might not be in the best interest of a Muslim. If you're in a country with a Muslim majority and a Christian minority, would it not be in your best interest to have a secular party?
But a
One that
secular
represents-
party could be against a religious person. Like your argument doesn't make sense.
How does it not make sense, though?
Because there's always going to be opposition.
That's right.
If you're a secularist, you may hate all the religious people.
I will
If
bring-
you're a religious person,
You
it's
know, I think
possible-
it's fair to say
you
that
know-
every viewpoint has its haters.
Today in Alicia Corbella, I don't know if you're familiar with the lady.
Oh,
She's an
gosh, yeah.
editor. Today in Calgary Herald, there is an article exactly about this topic. Because what we did yesterday, we would a week ago, Occupied Calgary went to City Hall and they did their meditations and religious service in the lobby, right, in the atrium. So what we decided to do is yesterday to go and do the very thing, but from the Christian point of view. And now a debate is open because now they are saying, what next? And I say, it doesn't matter. As long as it's not breaking any laws, I'm talking about a hate crime, let the Muslims come if they are wish
Being
to
respectful
come.
and-
If the Buddhists want to come and enjoy the public space, let them come. Why should I be terrified of that? I want to have the same rights.
You're totally right.
That's
a healthy democracy.
That's right.
But there has to be some kind of.
and if
I feel
religion-
there has to be some kind of mechanism to protect from extremism.
That's right.
And
That's where
that's where the Constitution comes in, the Charter of Rights, Bill of Rights. Those should be
But
the
those
mechanism
things-
placed to.
That is the safety net.
Yeah.
That is the safety
And
net.
also parties that are extremely extreme, they
That's
You
right.
can
under the
change the
judiciary, like you
Constitution.
said, they would be weeded out and,
That's
and
right.
not
You can
allowed.
change the Constitution. That's not.
I think the Constitution
unstable.
should be
difficult.
changed.
Yeah, in
Yeah,
fact, I
of
do
course
too.
they do in
Consistent.
Canada.
But that's a different topic, though. Again.
I know. Okay, let's get back. What other argument do you have to say that a Christian Heritage Party should not be able to run
That they're
and form
fundamentally
government?
exclusive. They exclude other groups of society based on religion, and some people are born into religion.
Is that it? Is that your only argument?
No, that's one of them.
All right, what
And
else?
The other one is we keep talking about participation. You guys keep talking about how you want religion to be participating, and I'm saying I'm cool with participation.
Good.
You
Then
go to
don't
politics.
exclude.
Hold on. Let him finish.
But I'm not. I'm excluding religious-based political parties. One thing, okay? You can go excluding political-based or religious-based political parties, not religious-based interest groups, or political parties having affiliations with religious-based interest groups. But the founding principles of a political party should not be religion, because the Bible has some inhumane things inside of it, and it can give justification for a variety of bad things, a variety of bad policy decisions.
Which I believe is what happened in the Middle East. I believe that's actually a huge thing.
And that's my whole point.
That-
Yeah, I'm not saying that religion shouldn't be excluded from the political
I have a
process.
subtly
They
different-
But political parties, a definition of a political party in a Westminster style democracy is to gain control and assume government.
Okay, here,
Correct.
hold on. I want to shift here. What's your argument?
Well, you don't want to hear my whole argument.
Oh, why?
What else? What else do you have to add?
Well, if they're going to assume government, they're exclusionary on those religious grounds.
Is that it? Anything
yeah,
else?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Steve, what do you want to add to that?
What was the question? How do we want to phrase this again? Why we would ban a religious-based political
Yeah.
party?
Why shouldn't we be allowed to form government?
Because by definition, they'll be in contradiction of the Constitution anyway. They're a living contradiction. They'll be forced to either become a secular party, like the Christian Democrats in Germany, if they are going to follow the Constitution, or they'll have no choice but to go against the Constitution.
That's a very
Hold on a sec.
far-sweeping comment.
Do you have anything to add? Or
In terms of this one, I had another point to make. It was different.
Okay.
But
So how would they violate the Constitution? I don't understand.
Well, if your religious beliefs are that certain individuals are, you know...
And we're going to go back to the same-sex marriage thing again. Obviously, it's the easiest one to grasp at.
It's easy, and it's that's relevant because a lot of people...
It is.
So you're talking about the religious values are exclusionary?
Yeah, they're exclusionary.
Is that
Lots of religious
and that's what you're arguing?
Yeah.
But isn't secular parties susceptible to that as well? So where do you draw the line?
Because secular parties don't base their policy on inhumane documents.
What about Hitler? He was the Nazis were a secular party.
What
about Stalin? Stalin, his whole political movement was secularism.
Argue by example.
Those are two prominent examples of secular movements.
That's right.
Look at George W. Bush, the Republicans.
I disagree.
They lied about Iraq. That was a secular-based party.
The Crusade, Inquisition, those were all religious-based mass atrocities.
As I said, I think that it's fair to say that every group in history has its individuals.
By example, man. Examples. If we want to go death for death, religion is responsible for more deaths than secular.
I suppose that depends on who you ask.
Yeah. I'm not choosing to go down that camp. I'm just showing secular parties.
You brought it up.
But I think it's fair to say humanity is flawed.
But your argument,
hateful people.
Yeah.
Well,
your argument isn't immune to religious-based parties.
show me one country,
Exclusive to
one
you.
country that has all
Full of self-righteous
100% beautiful,
They want
loving,
to impose their
watching people.
values on everybody else.
I think that's human nature.
Yeah.
Human nature.
I'm talking about
We always take
religious-based
regret.
political parties, the basis. Not whether religion should be excluded, nothing else. That's all cool. But the basis for a political party should not be religion.
Well,
Now let me just turn the table a little bit here. Okay, so I like what you have to say, and now I'm going to go from the other angle. Okay?
Hold on a second here.
Yeah.
I just want to
I got it in there.
Well, I want to
Steve?
just on the basis part. The problem with the religious political party, a party that is based on religion, is that there's a 100% chance you can never return to a rational, secular, empirical, scientific basis. Because it's a religiously based party. It can't become a secular party.
I don't think we're at a scientific-based government right now.
No,
I mean,
but
look at the crime bill.
I agree.
Yeah.
But if
terrible.
a party remains non-denominational, non-religious at all, it can be, at least in theory.
Well, they're starting off as being religiously based, though. They haven't got anything to go back to, right? They're not going back to a secular basis. They started out as being religious. So
That's utopia.
Yeah.
Because you're forcing people to have two cups, two hats. I'm at home. I believe in this and this and this with my wife, with my children. Then I go to work as a prime minister or mayor or whatever, and you're forcing me to be a different man. How can you separate your core beliefs, your heart, your conscience for whatever?
You're supporting my case, by the way. This is exactly why I don't think a religious political party makes any
But
sense.
that everybody has a worldview, my friend.
Everyone.
You might not agree with my worldview. I might not agree with
it
your
home.
worldview.
And what I
It's not possible. man.
Just let him finish.
The worldview informs your
listen, any political leaders.
That's not schizophrenia.
It is.
I bet you.
TSMV right
I
now,
bet you
man. That's
any.
not schizophrenia.
I bet you any politician, any political leader's own views are much more extreme than what they're willing to implement in the society.
That's why it's
You know,
called
I
politics.
believe in driving at twice the speed limit most of the times. If I was the mayor of the city, I would not remove all the speed limits, because what I believe for myself is one thing. What I believe is appropriate for myself. You know, if I like to get drunk every night, that's my personal belief. Then there's all kinds of other crazy ones I could give. But there's a world of difference between. There's a world of difference between deciding how I would live my life and how I would raise my family even, and how I would act as... It's a public trust. Governance is a public trust, and you have a different set of responsibilities there.
I totally believe that politics has an entirely different arena than your arena at home. I mean,
It is a compromise.
Exactly.
It is
it
a
should be. And
compromise.
I think
If
it
you're gonna
should be.
draft
I'm
policy
a
for
total
an entire
different person
country-
at work than I am at home, too. I want, like, my mind frame, like you said, you put on two hats, my mind frame changes entirely when I go to work. I want to perform the best job I can. I'm not going to focus on...
Let's say you're a member of parliament,
If you're drafting
and there is a
policy,
vote. You believe in life of unborn children, or you don't believe?
That falls on an entirely different spectrum.
No. Let's just...
Okay, so...
Either way, just for the
So,
sake...
okay,
just
for
for
the
the
sake
sake
of
of
Go
the
ahead, take
argument.
debate.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of the argument, you believe in unborn
it's any kind of policy.
Let's say that
I believe in reproductive choice.
So you believe in life in a mother's womb, right? So now you're a member of parliament, and there is a vote, right? You're going to vote, and you know that your vote is going to impact hundreds of thousands or millions of human lives in the future, and you believe that this is a baby in the mother's womb, with all your heart, with all your passion, with everything in you. But your government's policy says otherwise. What you're going to do? Because you will have to live with that policy for the rest of your life. You see, you cannot separate your beliefs from what you do for a living. It's like I watch documentaries, and because I'm a Polish and I grew up after the Second War, I have seen many, many documentaries when Nazi soldiers would say, when you were pulling the trigger, what you were thinking? Nothing. I was just following orders. So you had no feelings at all? No, because I was told to shoot. So what you were thinking at the moment? Well, to aim and to hit the heart. That's what I was thinking at the moment. You see, we cannot allow any government or any society to brainwash us to the point that we don't have our own beliefs. Because then you're becoming a brainwash cycle.
Isn't that kind of what religion, how we are born into religious beliefs? We don't really have a choice of religion when we're born.
No,
You're socialized
I was
in
born
religion.
in a Catholic house, even though my father worked for the government.
You're one of the few, I would have to say.
No. But then I have seen different things in my life, and I met the real God, not God of religion, because I hate religion myself. I don't believe in religion. And I believe you're right. Religion brings nothing but misery. I believe in the relationship with Jesus Christ. That's totally different. And at my table, that's why I disagree with you, because we feed thousands of people. And some of them are homosexuals, murderers, rapists, just overall bad people, homeless that come and they committed different crimes. But I don't ask them, what is your political point of view? Or what do you think about abortion? Or are you a homosexual because you look like one? If you are, I won't feed you. No, because the tables are set for everyone that is willing to come. That's what the politician does. But if you ask me to participate in your sins, so for example, let's kill someone, because we are buddies, we know each other, I eat at your table for so many years, let's do it together. My conscience, my belief system, whatever I believe, will not allow me to participate in that. So that's why I disagree with you, because if there is a good policy in place, and it's open like Jim said, you know what this party stands for, and it's not Christian Heritage Party is not standing for stoning people and chopping their hands.
But they are pro-death penalty.
I understand that, but there is those things are not in a policy, because the Bible, some people take it like you, just a few verses here and there, but a real believer takes the entire Bible, and the Bible finishes with this: love your enemies, don't hate, don't repay evil for evil. You see, that's your problem, because you can take from the Old Testament something, twist it in such a way around it that it looks like God is God of horror because he fired up Sodom and Gomorrah. What I'm saying is God is God of mercy, justice, and love if it's applied properly. So this party, he's speaking what Jesus Christ did, which is mercy, love, compassion. And that's their policy. You read their policy, tell me, do you see in their policy anything that is contrary to our criminal justice system? No, because it's not there.
But spinning that power happens all the time. Okay, government politics, that happens all the time in politics.
So saying one thing and doing
I believe that kind of power gets spun all the time.
If I kill 5 people and save 10, I still killed 5 people, right?
You did.
You know what I mean? So if I have a document that says that justifies doing 5 bad things, but justifies doing 10 good things, to me, that's still a bad document. That's still an inhumane thing. Because
does the Bible say that?
I can find 5 injustices in the Bible.
The 10 Commandments? Thou shalt not murder?
There's just 10 things.
No, it says there's 10 things.
But those are core values.
But still, there's still bad parts to it. Just like I said.
But maybe you're taking it out of context.
Like Archer.
Guys, this is another conversation.
Okay,
another conversation.
Jim, how do you respond to what...
And he decided in his own mind that... And that's his opinion. He's entitled to it. You're entitled to it.
Go.
Okay?
Yeah.
He decided in his own mind that he believes that the Bible is not has inhumane basis, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not totally humane from his viewpoint.
It's also exclusionary.
In that way.
That was his argument.
So
too.
from that basis, that viewpoint is not, from his point, 100% humane. Therefore, people that have an inhumane basis of belief should not be allowed to have a political party in Canada.
And also if they're
But the
exclusionary.
very statement is already morally relativistic. It's based on his own viewpoint that he's decided what it is that
it's not
is
relativistic.
humane or what is not humane, based on his own perspective. So this is where the problem lies.
Interpretation of the Bible.
I'm just saying, this is where the problem lies.
Yeah.
We either say that people from various viewpoints are enabled, as long as they're not promoting hatred, that they are enabled to have a party, to be in the electoral process, to allow Canadians who may share their views to vote for them or not, those that don't share their views, and to allow them to have a voice in the political debate, and allow those viewpoints to be brought into the public forum and either approved of by the public who's voting and presumably thinking people, hopefully, not thinking too much about football or whatever, and whatever the sport may be or whatever, but that they're actually coming to the forum with an open mind, willing to hear the viewpoints, willing to hear the basis of why those parties have formed their opinions, what their policies are, and what they stand for. And then making a judgment on how they will vote on that basis. And I think that is only the fair thing to do in a society that wants to have the so-called tolerance, like our society says that it does, and yet it speaks out of both sides of the mouth. On one side, we want a tolerant society. On the other side, we're going to exclude these groups from having political parties.
Yeah. There was that issue here in Canada. The Communist Party and other parties in Canada were excluded.
That's right.
And I believe it was in the 80s. It went to the Supreme Court of Canada, and the Communist Party won.
Yeah.
And they were able to get registration. How would you respond to Jim's?
You said moral relativism, and it's not relative. Cutting off someone's hand is
We're
not
going back
moral.
to a specific...
No. He said it's relative, and this isn't relative. Just like murder. If I think murder's good,
This could be fixed really quickly, because we are talking here about democracy. Democracy not halfway through it, but the whole democracy. And it's about voice, allowing people to voice their opinions, to vote for the party they like. So if you, let's say, have a problem with the context or contents of the Bible, the entire Bible, or portion of it, and there is a debate before you vote for someone, you can ask those people and say, okay, do you believe in this portion? Do you believe that cutting hands should be allowed in Canada? Do you believe in this and this and this? That's a democratic process. There is debate. I attended many debates, and even in last year's municipal election. I hear the guy, and I want to know, there are questions, and I want to know what he believes regarding different issues, and then he has a chance to speak. I cannot assume that just because you believe this. I have to ask the questions. There has to be policy. And in the policy of Christian Heritage Party, there is nothing about chopping people's heads. Okay? So there has to be a process. It's like if I would ask both of you a question, if there is a national debate and I'm allowed to speak about homosexuality and I'm against it, okay, if I can speak about that, and then you have the power to put me on air or not, what would you do?
They're going on air.
No, I asked them.
Yeah.
no. Why not?
Well, that's exactly my argument. Why not allow people to voice their opinions?
Yeah, that is a good point.
That's true.
The basis of the Bible, it does say in the Christian Heritage Party documents, because I did look it up, the Bible above all.
That's right.
And really, if it said the Canadian Constitution above all,
I'll tell you more.
Okay, so let me ask you
I
this.
might be more open-minded.
Let me ask you this.
At the table, you have a gentleman that believes in the Bible entirely. I take the Bible above everything there is on this planet Earth. Okay, you listening to me? I believe that the Bible.
Or your interpretation of it, at least.
Okay.
Yes.
The Bible is the ultimate authority for me. Ultimate authority. There is no higher authority than the Bible. No police, no parliament, no prime minister.
Well, then I have a problem
no.
with you forming government.
Okay,
So do I.
listen to me. The Bible is the ultimate authority for me. I believe that that's the word from God given to men, and if I will follow it, I'm going to bring justice and peace and love to the people. So now I want to run for the government. And I present my policy to you. And I say, based upon my belief system, based upon this Bible that you may not agree with, I'm going to build orphanages. And I want to build hospitals. I want to feed people. I want to lower the taxes.
But there are secular reasons for doing each one of those. No,
I don't care about the secular reasons.
You're also welcome to do all those good things.
The Bible is about everything. That's my ultimate authority.
But you don't get to make it mine. That's the point.
But this is mine. Because every party has a leader.
That's fine.
And around that leader, he tries to get more and more people, right? That's what it is. So you start with people in your basement talking about forming a party. That's how the party starts. Like, you don't teach yourself. So that's how it starts. There is one person or two people, three people, family members, let's do something. I don't like Stephen Harper. I don't like the way he runs the business. I'm going to form another party. And you know what? In 10 years, we're going to win elections.
It sounds like Jim Jones.
Let's do it. Whatever it is, I don't care. This is my party now. I'm starting a party based upon my beliefs. I form a list of things that I'm going to do for you, for my people, for Canadians. If you have problem with the list that I created, you come and you say, you know what, your party sucks.
And you're not getting my vote.
You're not going to get my vote because I don't believe in what you're saying. I don't believe that orphanages should be built. I don't believe that your policy regarding abortion, because if I was in power, I would stop abortion. If I was
wouldn't be able to.
I would do a referendum. And
it wouldn't matter because the Constitution limits what you can do. No,
you're incorrect. Referendum would change that. Because if you give the power to people, they vote. So you do a referendum. People's voice matters more than any other legislation. But anyway, the point is...
Legislation and constitutional law.
Policies, that's okay. That's your right. My right is to present my policies based upon any belief system I can think of. If I think people in Mars are living and the green guys are coming to Earth, that's my thing. If I want to form a party based upon Green Party from Mars, would you have a problem with that?
Yes.
Well, I had a problem if you walk the streets.
Then you are a dictator. Exactly. Yes. Because I have a right.
I just believe in reasonable limits.
Well,
so, reasonable limits.
But reasonable to whom?
But shouldn't the people decide?
Who gives the standard?
We have decided as Canadians. We have a charter and a constitution.
No, but why couldn't he run as a party based on that?
This is about truth. Whose truth? Yours? Mine? His? Who decides?
Isn't it up to the people to decide who they want in?
I guess it would depend if this Green Martian Party was secular or religious.
You know what? It wouldn't matter if I have 10 million Canadians that would believe in Green Martians and they would say, I love this guy, he's going to be my green hero. And they would vote and you have to put up with a prime minister that is green. Period. The thing is, in a democratic country, you cannot, if you want to maintain the democracy, you cannot control people's beliefs. You cannot.
Of course not.
So the minority lost. You know, which truth you're going to go for? The majority.
Okay. We gotta, we're gonna, is there any other closing remarks? Anyone who wants to add?
Free and democratic society has to allow different voices of opinions. If anyone tries and comes to take that right away, you're entering a ground of dictatorship. Today in the papers is another case of this guy from University of Calgary that was handing pamphlets against homosexuality. And he was taken out, arrested, and the whole case, and the judge sided with the guy. A university cannot become a thought police. Who can enter, who can distribute what, because then you're entering into a ground of dictatorship. I say who is in, and I say who is out. That's not democracy.
But there are limits to that, isn't there?
It's a gray area.
We already have
extreme hatred.
That's right. We already have those limits in place, and they are working really, really well. If it comes to hate crime legislation, it works perfectly. No problems here. It's always this thought police that dictates a person like me what I can preach about, what I can talk about, what I can believe. No, that's dictatorship, and I will stand against that.
and in favor of biblical law,
Yeah.
which is not a dictatorship.
But also this,
But
also the extremism
celestial.
is non-religious, non-sect. It could apply to anyone.
That's right.
Yeah.
And all slams aside, which we've had plenty of them tonight, and that's okay. I actually appreciate the color, so it adds to the conversation. But let's say, for example, and this is my last word because I know you want to wrap things up. But let's say, for example, I say in my own mind, if we could take one document that would be the premise for the atheistic movement from the evolutionary perspective, then that would probably be what's his name? Charles Darwin's On Origin of Species, right, by means of natural selection. And in that document, now maybe I read that document all the way through, and maybe there's things in there that, and maybe some of you read that document, maybe there's things in there you don't agree with. Maybe there's things in there you think are inhumane, like in order for the fit to survive, the unfit must die, and the survival of the fittest, and all those kinds of things. Maybe you decide, maybe I decide, that I think that's inhumane. That is not noble, that is not thinking of other people, it's not benevolent. And so on that basis, I say that is a wicked document, and that document is the basis for this atheistic party, and therefore, because they use that document as the basis and their authority on how they want to develop society from a purely secular viewpoint, excluding all religion, they should perhaps not be allowed access to the public forum. They should perhaps not be allowed to form government. I would disagree. I would disagree on the basis of reading the text of a document that is the basis of understanding of an evolutionary process, which forms the atheistic viewpoint. From my perspective, now that may be not right from my friend's perspective or from my other friend's perspective. That may not be right because they say, well, that's not fair because I don't believe exactly what you're saying about my belief system, the atheistic viewpoint that I may have. I don't believe in what you're attributing to me. Well, but I read your document. I know what it says. And therefore, you should not have a right to form a party on that basis.
Just as an closing, it seems to me that even though there's different opinions here, I think we're all in agreement that if a party is in this extreme hatred, echelon, that they should not be allowed to.
That's right.
Yeah, there's reasonable limits.
I think we can all agree on that.
There's always reasonable limits.
So
that doesn't mean you
the other
limit,
issue
doesn't mean
is
you limit viewpoint.
the other issue is just whether it applies to a certain party or not, and that's debatable. But I think we all agree on this point.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to have to close this. I want to thank everyone for participating and making this an intriguing podcast. For future FDA podcasts, please visit democracychange.org or download the FDA podcast from iTunes under the Foundation for Democratic Advancement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.